Hi, Milan here. Today we're going to continue the What Would You Tell Your Younger Self series. I'm really fortunate today to have Monika Thakur here. She's a vice president in a Fortune 500 company that I also have the pleasure to work with, who is well respected in her field and amongst her peers. And so we're really fortunate to have her with us to tell us some of her views on what she would go back and tell herself if she could to give herself career advice. So, Monica, welcome. Could you maybe tell us a little about yourself and then tell us the one thing, at least to start with, what you would tell your younger self?
Thank you, Milan. It's a pleasure to be here and right before the holidays as well. So happy holidays, first of all. And yeah, so I've been working at a Fortune 500 company here in the Bay Area for close to 19 years, so 2 decades. Wow, that sounds a lot. Before that, I worked for another high-tech company, so I'm a software engineer by background. And my passion, other than high tech, is mentoring and coaching women and just women, growing more women in leadership. So that's my passion, and that's my I would say my other job. And that's something that keeps me happy, and I look forward to doing more of that and that work. So what I would tell my younger self, the one thing I would tell my younger self, of course, there are many others, but the one thing that I can talk about today is that networking is absolutely something that I would not have thought as being crucial to both my personal and professional growth. I think as a young software engineer, I often thought of networking as being insincere. It felt manipulative almost. And I realized over the years that that was not true at all. In fact, I have a story, and that's how I learned that networking was not all about politics and getting ahead. There was so much more to it. So not very long ago, I was vacationing in Canada when I heard that my manager was leaving and that the position was vacant. And I knew right then and there that I wanted to apply. I thought I was qualified because I had, I knew the role. I had worked alongside my manager for many years. And so I did the thing that came to mind. I reached out to my network for recommendations. And I was pleasantly surprised that when the people I reached out to just rallied behind me and sent recommendations to executives they had never met or spoken to. That I was just amazed. To this day, I'm still very humbled that they did that. But this is when I realized that there's so much more to networking. And I wish I knew back then, because I would have invested more of my time and my energy into it. But it looks like I did build a trusted network of friends and partners over the years as I was working alongside them. So even though I was not a very good networker, I actually had built that trusted network of partners over the years. So this is something I absolutely would tell my younger self, to not be afraid to network.
No, that's great. I think I agree with you as well. I mean, I think networking and asking for mentoring is very similar, right? Because you still have to be able to go out and build a network in order to have mentors as well. So, no, that's very interesting. And I love your story on that. I think it's great to kind of show what networking can do for you positively. So, look, I wanted to ask you, based on your experience, do you find networking different or harder for men and women? Because you also coach and mentor a lot of people. Do you have any thoughts on how it's different or harder for women?
Yeah, I think it is harder. It's definitely different, but it is harder. And I've, as you said, coached women more, but also some men. And I do realize it's harder because I think women are hardwired towards deeper personal connections. And networking, somehow the transactional relationships seem, again, at the surface, manipulative or feel insincere. And that's why women struggle with it. I think that was one of the reasons I struggled with networking as well, because I want to form deeper relationships at work, but without realizing over the years, as we all do, we end up forming those relationships. It's just the concept, the thought of networking seems, it seems a little bit of a concept that's foreign and not so in line with how women think, because we are more for the deeper relationships. So that's one thing. The second thing I say is that women, even senior executives, we doubt ourselves a lot more than men do. So we have we lack the confidence that we would make valuable contributions because, we want to, when we network or when we build relationships, let's use that word because networking seems to be the word that's, the dirty word when women think about it, right? So when we are building relationships at work, we want to be able to add value to those relationships. And so, we have to have the confidence that there is something we are offering and adding value to the relationships. But if we lack confidence, which is what happens with a lot of women, we don't realize that we do have a lot to offer. And so when we lack that confidence, that's why suddenly these relationships, it becomes harder to manage them and build them. Men, on the other hand, I read, have no problem advertising their greatness, in the words of an interviewee in a research study that was done. So sorry, I don't want to say too much about that because I don't know personally, but that's my feeling. And then the third one, I think, is more of an external bias. So it's just the old boys club that keep women out of the men's networks, right? That's something that is hard to change. That's because that's a structural obstacle in my mind. But the other two things, which is one, we need to realize that we have value to add to networks. And so that goes with the confidence aspect. And the second one, that networking can be genuine. It's not always insincere. In fact, more often than not, it is authentic and genuine. And so that's something women can change as we think about networks and building relationships professionally and personally.
No, that's great, and thanks for those insights. I know a lot of people, even those on my team, will love to hear your thoughts on that, particularly the women. But I think it's applicable to everyone. I would like to ask you though. So if let's like use me. If I were a junior person just kind of starting out who may be feeling a little uncomfortableness or might be a little afraid, what would be some specific pro tips you would give me for starting to build a network? Like, how would I actually start? I'd love to hear a few thoughts of what you tell your own mentees about that.
Yeah, so I'll go back to when I was a young engineer. I ran the other way when there were social events at work. I had all excuses in the world, right? I mean, thinking about it now, they sound like they were excuses, but at the time they were genuine reasons because I had kids pick up, I had dinner to cook, I had, whatever it was, there was a genuine reason. So in my mind, I was not making excuses. I had a genuine reason to run the other way when there was a social event. That, I think, it was really, looking back, these are excuses in my mind because, come on, that one day in 6 months or a quarter when people are getting together, doesn't happen very often. Do you really think you cannot find anybody to watch the kid or pick up your kids or have your husband or spouse or partner make dinner that one evening or order takeout? It's not that hard. So just think about it the next time there's a social event at work and you're running the other way like I did. Think about it. It might be fun, and it might be a start to deeper relationships. So that's the first tip I would give. The second tip I would say, sorry, you
No,
had
no,
a
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just, once I
No,
start
it's good.
talking about this.
No, it's
So
great.
the second tip I would say is volunteer for assignments. So step out of your comfort zone because, as you build the credibility and as people know about you, it'll open the door to new opportunities because word gets around quick about good news. It travels fast. And so, just don't be afraid of trying out, raising your hand and trying new opportunities at work. I would say those will open the door to some more meaningful relationships. um,
No, that's great. I was just going to say, I absolutely agree with the way you broke it out because that's the way I think about it as well. You have social functions, and then you have the
mhm,
work function networking, and so the example that I would use for myself is I remember times when I followed your second one, which was okay, I volunteer to do projects, people start hearing about it. And then it opens that door for a longer conversation about how the project's going. And then you can kind of get to know people during work.
mhm,
Because a lot of people do have, like you say, life that happens outside of work and have more flexibility than others. So I do think it's important for everybody to understand that there are networking opportunities that relate with your job, not just the social events. Because I think I've heard
absolutely.
the same thing as you, where people assume networking is really social events or just going to coffee. But the definition in my mind is much broader as well. So I'm really
Mhm.
glad you brought that out because I think a lot of people would benefit from hearing that. At least some of us think of it in both aspects, not just the social events, because so those can be hard after hours. We all have commitments, so I think it's good to recognize there are great opportunities within the workday to have
Right.
networking opportunities. So no, I think that's awesome. So how about any other tips you have about building your network?
So the last thing I will say, Milan, is that it's a muscle. It doesn't happen overnight. It'll feel really terrible the first time we do it, and then the next time, and then it just becomes easier. And then guess what? After all these years, I think you and I both enjoy these conversations, and this is all part of networking and building relationships. So I hope that this is the one last tip that we can give on this topic.
No, that's great. And again, Monica, really thank you for providing your insights and your experience. And I think this is definitely a topic that we may dig into more as time goes on because networking really is a big part of running the village and getting work done. Because no work, especially in our kind of tech business, is done in a vacuum or in a small team. So without a network, a lot of times I've found that someone's value is almost linearly impacted by their network. The bigger network
Mhm.
they have, the more resources you can usually bring on, to task when there's a larger issue. So again, Monica, thank you for taking your time. For those that are interested, I'll post her LinkedIn link down in the description so you can see her outstanding career. And thanks again, Monica. Really appreciate your time. And if there's other topics in the future, we'd love to have your thoughts on them.
Thank you very much, Milan.
Thank you. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. You too.